Martin, you got anything else?
Actually, I do not.
All right, good. Crystal, that's it?
That's all we have.
Very good. Next, we move on to a public hearing to consider a rezoning application for the Sisters LTD to rezone approximately 2 acres in Turtle Creek Township from I-1 light industrial manufacturing inside of a JED to a B2 community commercial business zone removed from the JED. Good morning.
Warm. Good. So I'm Cameron Krasinski with Warren County Regional Planning Commission. Michelle Tiegmeyer is the zoning administrator. She is in the back. She's just not feeling well, so I will present this morning. Taking a look at this case is case number 2023-10. Applicant, owner, agent is the Sisters Limited, Jalora Summers. Township is in Turtle Creek. Property location, the address is Route 350, Lebanon, Ohio 45036. And the parcel identification number is 1316-100-037. Property size is 8.8983 acres. Only 2 acres will be divided out for this rezoning. And 669.3 feet of road frontage, approximately 200 feet of frontage on the newly subdivided lot. Current zoning is I-1 JED overlay. Future land use is commercial. Existing land use is I-1 light industrial manufacturing zone inside a JED area. It is currently vacant. Zoning requested is B2, community commercial business zone removed from the JED. And the issue for consideration is to rezone the property from an I-1 light industrial manufacturing zone inside the JED to a B2 community commercial business outside the JED overlay. So it would stay within the JED, but be removed from the JED overlay.
What does that mean?
So there's the JED, which is a separate agreement between the township and the city, and then the JED overlay is within our zoning code. So they would be removing themselves from the overlay that exists within our zoning code, which has limitations on certain uses.
Does it mean, so if I understand this correctly, it's still within the Joint Economic Development District for purposes of allowing an earnings tax to be collected by the township if we approve this, is that right?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
The overlay just restricts certain uses. One of the uses that they're proposing is not permitted within that JED overlay, so they're looking to remove the overlay.
Okay, thank you.
So they're removing it from the JED, but yet it stays in a JED?
Removing it from the JED overlay, it still stays within the JED. Looking at the review process for the RPC recommendation was on December 21st, and then moved on to the Rural Zoning Commission on January 3rd, and it's here today for the decision. Here's a look at the provided site plan for this rezoning. Here is the proposed use. I believe the gentleman from Southern Tire Mart is here as well to speak on what the actual use and what Southern Tire Mart actually is. Additional information about Southern Tire Mart. So the total site is 8.8963 acres. The subject site, it's approximately 2 acres that they're looking to actually rezone. So it's approximately the 2 acres located in red on the right.
What's the blue?
The blue is the total site. So it's currently, the whole site is 8.8963. They're looking to only rezone the 2 acres.
Oh, really? Did they explain why?
I think they only need the 2 acres for this use. So
Are they separate parcels?
currently one parcel.
So they're gonna be doing a partition? Or some sort of a separation of these
They
parcels?
are going through a preliminary plan process. That will be on Thursday.
Do they have to do a partition?
They don't have to. They chose to.
Okay.
Looking at the surrounding uses, this is located near the Flying J Travel Center and Country Kitchen to the left, Sunoco to the south, and the single-family residential to the east. Again, this is located within the JED. So here's the total JED area, the 382 acres. The subject site is only 2 acres. Again, it's staying within the JED, just being removed from the JED overlay.
Is that entirely within Turtle Creek Township?
Correct, yes. So here are a look at the allowable uses within the B2 if this rezoning were to be approved. These would be all of the allowable uses that would be permitted. What's highlighted in dark blue is what's currently prohibited in the JED. So on-demand storage containers, truck stop, What this is being classified as is the automobile fueling station and oil change. So this is the use that they are proposing, and it's currently prohibited within the JED overlay.
And the other things that are highlighted there would be permitted as well if we make this
Correct.
change?
Yes.
Okay. And have we notified everyone within a certain distance who are neighboring property owners to this?
I believe so, correct, Michelle? All within 500 feet, yes.
Can you put back that list again? I just want to see it again. Okay, thank you.
This is a sample of the JED overlay, a sample of the allowable and prohibited uses. So what's in blue, these are currently allowable uses on the site. In gray are the prohibited uses. So some of these prohibited uses will become allowable if this rezoning were to be approved. But this is just a look at what is currently permitted within the JED overlay.
But there is a truck stop inside of the JED.
Correct, yes.
Even though it's a prohibited use?
Right, I believe that came before the JED overlay. Yeah, the truck stop was over there.
Okay.
And there are certain uses which are highlighted which have development limitations. So the total site, what's in the preliminary plan, what they're looking to actually subdivide is 1.774 acres. These are looking at some of the B2 uses if this did get approved. Some of the actual developments would not be permitted, so things like an institutional care facility requires a minimum of 5 acres. Auditoriums, performing arts centers, and stadiums, also 5 acres. Cemeteries require 20 acres, so all of these would not be permitted. And the all uses, so any use that comes forward by the B2 zoning district on a 1.774 acre site would have a maximum building size of 0.44 acres.
How does that work if someone, because, we're talking about all the potential down the road, what happens, but if someone comes in and says specifically, I want to rezone this property to put a filling station on it, and then they receive their approval, it's changed over, and then all of a sudden, they say, actually, we're not putting a filling station, we're gonna put a target range there, because it's an allowable use. What happens with that, Bruce?
Our zoning code would tell you what public process it has to go through, and I believe it requires, under our chart of uses, a site plan review process that can come before the board of county commissioners.
So that's not like an audit, people can't do like a bait and switch of saying, we're gonna do blank, and then, oh, we've got our new zoning, we're pulling it, and now we're gonna do something else. There would be an approval process from this board.
Yes.
And these are a look at prohibited uses within B2. These are all currently permitted within the JED overlay, but they're not permitted under the rezoning request. So the applicant would lose all of these uses as well within the rezoning.
Does anybody object to this? If they do, I'm sure they're going to speak this morning, but did you receive any objections?
I don't believe so,
Okay.
except for the township, yeah. And here's a look at that notification map, so everyone within 500 feet of the site was notified. Here's a look at the zoning map. Again, it's within the I-1 JED overlay, adjacent to B2. Here's another look at the current zoning. Again, I-1 JED overlay. The surrounding parcels, there's I-1 and B2 that are all surrounding. And the proposed zoning would be B2 community commercial business. Again, the subject site would remain within the JED. It would only be removed from the overlay. Looking at the future land use map, it is identified as commercial designation. We did receive comments from Turtle Creek Township. It states the Board of Trustees would request that the Warren County Zoning Board follow the recommendation of the Warren County Regional Planning Commission for denial of the rezoning request for the Sisters Limited property. Look at Warren County Water and Sewer. They state that Warren County cannot provide centralized water or sewer service to this parcel. Development as a commercial property may be challenging if centralized water and sewer service is required. From Western Water Company, they state that Western Water is the water provider for this parcel. I do not see any issues at this time. Before the construction takes place, however, we must be notified so we can locate and plan necessary construction for water services. For Regional Planning Commission, on December 21st, the RPC Executive Committee voted to recommend denial of the rezoning to the Rural Zoning Commission. The motion passed with 14 aye and 1 abstain. And the Rural Zoning Commission, Mr. Magrum made a motion to recommend approval to the BOCC, Warren County Commissioners, after reviewing section 1.304.5 for the map amendment of a portion of parcel 13-16-100-037 from the current zoning district I-1 JED overlay to B2 community commercial business. Mr. Magrum stated he based his decision by using criteria A, B, D, and E from section 1.304.5 of the Rural Zoning Code, and that was a unanimous vote. Do you have any questions for me at this time?
So, regional planning voted to deny, and rural zoning voted to approve?
Correct.
Interesting, okay?
Did the regional planning give reasons?
The two main reasons that we heard were in regards to, they thought this could be done through a PUD, where only the one use would be allowed within the PUD, everything else would be restricted. However, in this area, the minimum PUD requirement is 5 acres. They're only looking to rezone 2 acres, so that option wasn't available, at
Okay,
least.
so wait a second. So they denied it and expressly stated that they thought it could be accomplished more efficiently or easily through the PUD process, but they were not aware that that could not be done.
That was an initial suggestion at the time. They were also concerned, as you mentioned, at some of the allowable uses that would be permitted within
Okay, is that
B2.
the main objection for some of the
Yeah.
allowable uses? Did they specify which allowable use? Given the uses that are currently going on there, why would the allowable uses that they're concerned about be a problem, and which was that? What were those?
Are you aware of which ones they specified, Stan?
They did not specify any use, but if you could probably pull up the.
Yeah, we're looking at it. I just, given the uses that are there, what's the problem? Because obviously, we've got this pilot station with it, which has got gasoline and all sorts of things. I don't imagine why any of these others would be more of a,
Could you bring up the slide that's?
I wanna see again, what are we prohibiting?
These
Is now
are the
prohibited?
uses that are currently prohibited.
Currently prohibited, what, can you read those, because I can't read them.
It's multifamily dwelling, which is only for upper story residential. So they would have to be above a use.
Cemeteries?
Cemeteries, which.
Is that actually is that possible?
It's limited to 10 acres.
So it can't be done?
It couldn't be done.
Okay, great.
It's a truck stop.
We've already got one. Go ahead.
The use that they're requiring are the use they would actually conduct.
I'm not worried about automobile sales.
Okay, golf courses, fitness gyms.
That can't possibly be a problem.
Okay,
Self-storage, shooting range, now that's an interesting one. Is that
Shoot-
possible?
Possibly on a 1.7 acre site. I'm not sure if shooting range is possible on one.
I mean, I could see somebody not liking that.
And then a storage facility, which has a very limited use on.
Is a shooting range have a size requirement?
We actually don't,
And is this an outside shooting range or inside?
outside shooting.
Outside, outside, okay, well, that's an interesting one. Okay, thanks.
Very good. We'll hear from the applicant. And Counselor?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Sophia Hawley, KMK Law. Thank you so much for coming out. Thank you so much for listening. I apologize to the staff and to Mr. McGarry, who has heard this spiel 3 times. But my big statement to you, the commissioners, is that we have a user who's ready to go into this property, a user who is a good company. I'm joined by my client, Jalora Summers, who's the owner of the property. I'm also joined by John Boynton, who's the president of Southern Tire. He's been here, this is his 3rd time here. He's shown up to every public hearing. I'm also,
But who's
Oh.
counting?
I'm also joined by Perry Phillips, who's in-house counsel. These are really decent people. They put on a good organization. They're growing. They're excited about what they're doing. I mean, the sort of irony of all the zoning stuff is they just want to operate their Southern Tire Mart facility. They don't want to operate any of the other uses. And the reason we're here is because as the JED currently stands, they cannot. It's prohibited. So we're here to request your relief and your support.
You've already won this with me, with the exception of, I wanna know if there's another way to do this that doesn't permit an outside shooting range. And I would not be offended by an outside shooting range, but I could imagine that someone might. None of the other things are a problem for me that you would now be permitted. So I first would like to know, was there a thought to doing this some other way? I have no problem with what they're doing, and I'm gonna approve it, except I'm worried about this outside shooting range issue.
I understand what you're saying, and I would say it's been, would you like a comment? Of course.
This was actually comment on the outdoor shooting range. The outdoor shooting range is a conditional use, so the BZA would look at the appropriateness of that use on that site.
So they could deny it.
So they could certainly deny.
And-
Okay.
And we could deny it. Bruce's comment, it would actually, that would be a change of use and have to come before us anyway.
Okay, well, then I don't have a problem with this.
Well,
I mean, you may, but
Well, I want to go through the
Yeah,
hearing
sure.
process.
You want to hear
I
more?
know, yeah, go ahead.
I'll keep talking. I get paid by the minute. Okay.
Yeah, and he's the president, I'm just the peon, okay?
So one thing I do want to bring up that hasn't come up yet, one of the unusual circumstances here, when this when the JED was created, the intention was for sewer to be provided to the entirety of the JED, and there was a plan for that to go into effect. Unfortunately, while it was the intention for there to be sewer, by the time we got to the point that we were putting it in, it was twice as much to put in the sewer as initially intended. So initially it was quoted at 3 million. By the time it was time to start developing, it bumped up to 6 million. I have no idea how much it would be today with the interest rates, with the construction costs, where I'm encountering developers having trouble developing anywhere. But essentially, this property was intended to have sewer access, and as a result of the circumstances and the costs associated with it, there's no sewer for the property. One of the circumstances that can justify a change in zoning is changed circumstances, and I would humbly submit that that is a circumstance that supports the rezoning we're requesting here today.
So where are sewers located?
So I actually do have something I'd like to share with you, if I may approach, please.
Yeah, sure, of course.
We are able to get sewer through Pilot, and I have letters of support from Pilot authorizing it, as well as from a sewer supplier indicating that there is a design flow permitted through Pilot of 20,000 gallons a day, and with the addition of this Southern Tire, it would be 19,000. So essentially, like, there is the capacity to add on the Southern Tire. The Southern Tire, I believe, is going to have one lavatory. It's not going to have a significant sewer demand, and there is just enough for them to work with the appropriate approved engineering amount. So I'm going to approach and hand out copies of this so you could review it. Just one moment, please.
What does this mean? So you're gonna, the pilot has a tap-in, and you're going to actually have access to their sewer system?
Yes.
So in other words, there's not an additional tap-in fee, and you don't have to run a separate line? How does this work?
If I remember correctly, they don't have public sewer. Isn't that a private system there?
Yeah, I think it's in a
That's
package plan.
correct, it's a package plan, but I think once you hear from the end user, the Southern Tire Mart representatives today, you will see how this all comes together.
Okay.
I'll just give a few more comments, and then I'm going to ask Laura to speak a little bit about her troubles with selling the property, and then the intended user. They're really cool. I think you'll enjoy hearing about their use. Something I just do want to bring to your attention, I work with a lot of certain auto-related companies, and one of the services that Southern Tire is going to provide is picking up broken down vehicles off of the side of the highway. like broken down trucks. And the only other companies that are equipped to do that are either tow trucks, and they require specialized equipment, so not all tow yards could do it, or the fire department. So I'm a mother of young children, I'm driving with toddlers, I'm always trying to avoid risk and danger, and I think that what they're providing to the community, which is helping making sure our highways are clear, is something that the community should want, supports.
So they can pick up a tractor trailer, is that what you're saying?
Yes, for broken down vehicles, that's one of the services.
Repair.
Oh, you actually go out and repair the
That's
tractor
correct,
trailer?
yeah.
You don't actually tow it
We
someplace?
do not.
Yeah, blown tires, pulled off to the side, their guys go and fix it.
Exactly.
Okay, great.
To sort of talk a little bit about the alternative uses, to the extent to which there's any concern there or desire, really, truly, my client just wants to sell their property to this client and they want to open up shop. We looked at every, in my opinion, conceivable alternate option to achieve that is not this rezoning. The challenge here is all of the things that have been discussed. It can't be a PUD due to the size. Specifically with respect to spot zoning, I corresponded with your council at the end of last week about case law that indicates that spot zoning actually is inapplicable in instances where you're dealing with, and here's the quote from the case, a district allowing a, quote, broad mix of commercial, manufacturing, recreational, and residential uses. So while spot zoning is a concept that we look at in the law, in instances where there's such a broad mix, it's simply inapplicable. And this was the leading case, Phillips Supply versus Cincinnati, 2012, Ohio 6096.
I really accept your statement that that's the case. I don't need the authority.
Okay.
I'm not being objecting to you.
I do, because I've actually been watching Suits lately, and I want to have the dissertation on the case.
I mean, you're treating us very much like we're a court here, and we are in a way.
I know.
But it's okay. I accept that your statement that you can't do spot zoning.
Yes, it's inapplicable here. Well, frankly, I'd never encountered spot zoning in this kind of instance. Normally, I'm dealing with like one little parcel that is next to residential, or there's so many different uses. I mean, this could be a plastic manufacturing facility. And I will note that there's been none of the public has shown up, none of the public has objected to our proposed use. The proposed end user, the applicant has put a lot of energy into developing this property. The JED has been, I believe, had no development in over 7 years, due to, in large part to this sewer issue. We think this is perfectly suited, incredibly harmonious with the pilot adjacent to it. Let's get these trucks serviced and on the roads. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, but otherwise, I just would like to ask.
I have one question.
Of course.
The owner of the property, I assume, does not live anywhere near this property, is that right?
So the owner of the property, I believe, is based out of Mississippi. However, his sister lives in the Cincinnati area, so he does come here from time to time. And by the owner, I mean the president, which is Mr. Boynton.
I'm not talking about the owner of the property once they put the facility there that they want. I assume that they've just got a contract to purchase, but there's another owner of the property, is that right?
Oh, yes, the current owner.
That's what I'm talking about, it's the current
Oh,
owner.
yeah, I live here.
Okay, you do.
I live in Warren County.
All right, but you don't live on this property?
Yeah, my son lives in Timber Creek subdivision.
Okay, what's your name again?
Yeah, are you finished?
Yeah, come on up.
Hi, I'm Dolores Summers. I don't think we've met, Tom.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Everybody else knows me, unfortunately, or fortunately. I'm a lawyer too,
Okay.
but I'll be brief because I don't.
I'm gonna look up her cases later to make sure she's.
Yeah, no, you're
I
right.
emailed it to you, you have it here.
No, you're not.
Thank you.
Nah, who cares? So, real brief. 7, 8 years ago, we got the JED together because we were gonna get sewer. And a committee formed, there was like 20 of us was part of the committee, we're part of the committee. And the whole purpose was to create this entity, the JED, so that there could be a sharing of the revenues by the municipalities and the expense of the sewer. And the property owners were involved because they were gonna share in the cost of the sewer and benefit from it. So everybody was gonna be a give and take, a win-loss, but it was gonna happen. And then we found out, once it went to Martin, that it was gonna cost, from $3 million to $6 million. And nobody wanted to pay $6 million. So there was no sewer. So I've been sitting on the property for 7-8 years and not able to sell it. And paying now $30,000 a year in real estate taxes because Pilot went in and that's my comp. So these gentlemen came and approached me to buy the property, buy 2 acres, so they can put in an auxiliary use for what's already there. So they want to put in a tire shop, garage shop to service the trucks that are coming to Pilot and any other user that's driving down the road delivering our Amazon packages. So that's why we're here today.
So how did you come to own this property?
I inherited it. So it's sisters is myself and my 2 sisters. And so we inherited the property. And I'm trying to sell it, so
In that
our
home,
children don't have to deal with it.
when the Pilot came in, they used the sale of that acreage as the best, determiner of your property's value.
Yeah, they did.
Raise your taxes.
Yeah, they did.
To a level where you're paying, and it's not income generating, you don't farm this or something like that or anything?
We started farming it about 3 years ago so we could get the CAUV, but it's only a portion of it's farmed. So I'm paying taxes, a high rate of tax.
Well, I'm very familiar
no
with that.
benefit.
I have 2 farms as well, and I save taxes with the CAUV, although you do have a recapture, if you do
Right,
that.
right, I do real estate.
Okay, well, look, I've already expressed my opinion. My only
thank you.
concern was that outside shooting range thing.
Yeah, like I said, my kid lives, and my grandkids live nearby. I don't want a strip club, I don't want anything obnoxious.
Was that one of the permitted usages?
No.
No.
Okay, that would have caused me to have
That would have raised an
questions.
eyebrow. No, but, I live in the neighborhood, so I live in this area. And, I don't wanna create a headache. And you weren't here, others were, when it was changed, when Pilot wanted to come in, it was pitchforks. We had a crowd, and I don't see any citizens here now being upset about this. So I hope you pass it, please. So I'm done talking.
Thanks, Joelle. Very good. Since the potential owner came all the way up, welcome to hear from you.
Yep. Good morning. My name is John Boynton. Do also want to state that actually I was a one-time resident of Warren County for about 4 years, from 2004 to 2008. So I am familiar with the area, and I have a very strong affinity for the area as well too.
Well, in the council's already represented you're really cool guys.
That's what more do you say?
Sure, you're there.
Thank you. We are very excited to be, hopefully, to be in the area. What our focus is building up maintenance shops, and where we're doing light mechanical work and we're doing tire work. And the objective is to keep customers operating and moving safely as they are trying to get to their ultimate destination. And we found that obviously partnering up with Pilot locations and being on right next door to them is perfect, because when a truck has a vehicle has an issue or something like that, a driver can come in and see us. We can typically get that driver back on the road within about 2 hours and get them to their destination, versus being stranded there that could be for hours, even perhaps days, waiting for the right repairs to be done. We also do, as was pointed out, we also do emergency roadside assistance as well. So we dispatch if a driver has a blown tire or something like that, and they need emergency service. We have our own call center. We will dispatch and go out there and get that driver up and operating. We're a company that's based out of Mississippi, a little town called Columbia, Mississippi, that's just outside of Hattiesburg. And again, like I said, we're in the process of building up some facilities like this. They're very nice, clean, facility, state-of-the-art. They're very conducive for drivers to get in and get out very quickly.
How many employees do you typically have?
Typically, we're gonna have anywhere between, depending on, initially, we'll have about 8 to 10, and then we'll get up to about 14 to 16 employees in there, depending on demand.
What distance, so if somebody calls for your service, how far will you travel?
You know, great question. There really is no limit to how far we will go. And obviously, there's something that is reasonable, but typically, most of our calls are gonna be within a 45 to 60 mile range maximum. But it's not uncommon to get something that'd be further out than that.
And do you dispatch from your location here?
That's correct, yeah.
And do you have a 24-hour service?
We do have 24-hour service, 7 days a week. Yep.
I don't have any other questions, thank you.
Very good, thanks for showing up.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Very good. Heard from the applicant. We certainly appreciate our friends in Turtle Creek Township. Jonathan, do you have any comments on this? You guys sent us a letter saying you don't like this. We certainly respect your opinion. We're interested in why.
Good morning, Commissioners. First, compliments to Ms. Holly and to Ms. Summers and to Southern Time Mart. They've been absolute professionals going through this process. Ultimately, our position is not that we argue against the use. In fact, we don't object to the use at all, which I'll go into in a little bit as well. But I don't take a micro view of what's going on here. We don't look at just 2 acres. We look at 382 acre JED and JED overlay. And I'll go into a little bit of history just to bring everybody back up to speed as to where we've been. So, but ultimately, along with Commissioner Grossman's thought processes, we don't object to use. It's the methodology of the zoning change that we would like to see if there is an alternate to achieving the same thing without undermining the JED of the JED overlay and the community that came in and represented itself 10 years ago, which came up with the compromise and the approved uses that you see before you.
Well, you're a real estate lawyer, eminent real estate lawyer, and I know you do this, Jonathan. Is there another alternative route to accomplish their goal?
I'm a real estate transaction lawyer. That's why I have Amy Blankenship with me today, is to make sure that we're able to cover these properly, because I'm afraid that I would misinform, and I don't want to do that. But we think that an accessory use may be a methodology, or Amy will be able to present some alternatives as well. But to go back first, as far as Jalora is absolutely right. The place was filled with people with pitchforks and torches, and I don't remember if Commissioner Grossman was here.
I thought I was here for that.
I thought you were too.
You know,
I know Commissioner Jones was
I
not.
remember arguing about this, but you know, if Dolores.
I wasn't gonna bring up the past. I was definitely here.
I know that you were here.
And I definitely voted against all this.
Yeah.
And I definitely said sewers are gonna be a problem and you can't get them there. I don't care about this, Jed. You're not gonna be able to do it.
Well, he
is I
voted
think what I
against
said.
it, then I must have been there.
So who'd have thunk it that we're at this point?
So the citizens were very concerned about truck stops. This is to go even further in the Wayback Machine. This area was zoned industrial in 1953 or 1954 when that zoning code was approved. At that point, nothing was in the area where this interchange is, and so the industrial uses made sense. Began to grow up, particularly Timber Creek is nearby. City of Lebanon has houses nearby, and the pilot was presented. People had concerns, some of which were material, some of which were immaterial, as it turns out. I think as perhaps Commissioner Young, saw. But we had our citizens here. Timber Creek came out in force, and they objected to the pilot, but of course it was zoned for the pilot, and you can't object to land use that's already been approved under zoning. The time to do that's long before that use is presented. That property was owned by the sisters, and ultimately, as Ms. Summers says, there was a group put together that came up with the approved uses that are here that was amicable to the community. Regarding the sewer, the changed use. As far as there not being pitchforks today, I mean, notice it went out within 500 feet, and I don't think Timber Creek's within 500 feet, and so I think the people who objected actually didn't have that. They rely on us as the governing jurisdiction to present concerns related to that and to protect what the community has agreed upon, and it's in that representative
So
capacity.
Jonathan, my simple question before,
Yeah.
we go down a rabbit hole potentially is, I look at this a lot like I looked at gaming 15 years ago.
Yeah.
We were pregnant with gambling, so now we want the best outcome,
Yeah.
whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
Obviously, I didn't think this was the correct use for this interchange and setting the tone with a truck stop, but now I want it to be the best one possible. And this is an ancillary business that ties in perfectly with what their business model is, and that is obviously their model. They probably follow these around the country and build where they're building, is what I would imagine. So with what the testimony we heard earlier from regional planning, that even though there is, 8 acres on this one subject property, and we're only talking about changing 2, and that's allowable, I guess, and what if, even though these are good people and they want to have their tire store there for however long, that what if they go out of business 10 years from now, and then all of a sudden new buyer comes in, buys the property? That's the unintended consequences that we always try to think of the ramifications of that long term. But as our council said, a future board will have discretion over a substantially different usage being allowed there. That if it's not a tire store and it becomes a gun range or whatever else, a board of commissioners will have to approve that. That gives me all the comfort I really need relative to some sort of governmental oversight. Do you not agree with that?
Two responses to that. First is the micro, the second is the macro. Again, my view is more on the macro, but on the micro scale, if it's an approved use, I respectfully and rarely disagree with my colleague, Mr. McGarry, insofar as if it's a use that's permitted under the zoning code, then it's a use that's permitted under the zoning code. You can approve the site plan, but the use, I don't think that you have discretion. Mr. McGarry may disagree with me.
That's correct.
Okay, that's my response on the micro.
Okay, but
The use would happen.
Jonathan, before you move on for that, I think the question is more direct on the micro level, which is, can we deny it? And are the review right different depending upon what we do today? In other words, I could see how we could deny it and have the right, because that's what gives me comfort over this, but that the standard of review changes, and that the person that is, say, seeking that permitted use that we've now denied has a better chance of reversing us than would happen if this is a prohibited use. Is that the concern? Or is there some other concern you have?
On the macro scale. And as
Okay,
far-
we're changing from the micro to the macro now, okay?
Yeah,
So what's the difference?
because I think, I may have misunderstood your question. On the micro scale.
Well, what I'm wondering is why, because I was only concerned when it went through those prohibited usage. I didn't have a problem with any of those usages, except I was worried about the outside gun
And
range.
we're also concerned about storage units out
Okay,
there.
I'm not exactly sure why that would be a problem, but it wouldn't be a problem with me, but okay. But let's just put aside the fact that there might be something else that could be, prohibited. We have the right to do it, apparently. So if we were the ones that said no, and I would assume that you would come in and say, please say no, and we would say no, that person that we just said no to, what's their recourse?
They have as far as the use, the zoning, if we change the zoning, they would have the right to use it for that use. You would have the ability to approve the site plan if it's an inappropriate.
Now, what if
site
we
plan.
said no to their use?
You can't, because the zoning
I
code
thought we
says-
did have that right,
You
Bruce.
can't say no to the use, but you can say no to the site plan. And that's what the pilot truck stop case was all about. I also want to inform Jonathan that as related to the citizens, an appellate court, a decision written by now an Ohio Supreme Court justice, said those residents you're talking about have no standing. they have no unique harm that was imposed upon them, proven in that case. So there were 70-some residents that appealed that case. Originally 50 to the Common Pleas Court and about 70 to the appellate court. And the court said, you don't have standing, residents. So that's where we stand with that case.
Yeah, but I wanna know if I can actually prohibit the gun range.
Well, I mean, if it's an outdoor gun range, that means they're tearing down the building and they're coming in with a new site plan, which we do have discretion on, correct? And then it's, wait, this is silly to be firing weapons where there's trucks and people. and
Yeah,
it's-
you could put mounding requirements, all kinds of public safety requirements on that. And I can't imagine that an outdoor gun range could afford the purchase price of this property.
Well, I can't imagine it either, because you can't make any money doing that, because there's all sorts of outdoor gun ranges, including very close to us, that are very large. And I mean, to have a gun range that is successful, you might want to have skeet shooting, you want to have trap shooting, you might want to have 100 yards out shooting. There's no way you can do it on this property, but go ahead, you were going to say something?
Mr. Thiemeyer just informed me that the use is a conditional use, so the use would actually be reviewed
Okay.
By
that
the
is helpful.
BZA.
by the BZA. and
Okay.
could be
Not
denied
this
by-
board.
Correct.
But that's okay to me as
Yeah,
well.
There's a governmental authority, there's a process.
So
There's a public hearing process, yes.
You know, Jonathan, I don't remember ever going against your opinion and recommendation to us, except in the case of the Solid Rock Christian Church rezoning. So you know how much weight you hold with us. So once again, is it true that you don't think we can prohibit some of these usages?
That's true.
Okay.
Now, if I may move to the macro side, which is actually my bigger concern on this. So there are bases upon which, and again, I have Mr. McGarry here, who frankly taught me a lot of what I know about real estate and zoning, so I respect his opinion greatly, as do the balance of the people in this room. But on the macro side, we have 382 acres that are here. And I do agree that sewer has not come in yet, but we've done everything necessary for sewer to come into it. Again, in this room, with OKI, we changed the 504 sewer district from Warren County sewer to City of Lebanon sewer, so we could bring in City of Lebanon sewer. We have all of the structures in place. However, neither the city nor the township, nor the county will pay for it because we don't get the economic benefit out of it. When the owners out there together decide that they're ready for it, then that's fine. Or when the TIF funding that comes from the taxes that are out there comes together, then that's fine. Also, that can pay for it, but that will be several years down the road, many years down the road probably. The structures for the sewer is in place. The point to that is that I don't think the circumstances have changed because the structures are the same. It's just perhaps the owner's timing expectations have changed. So that's that point. On a bigger issue on the macro scale with me is we came together with the community. Correct, they don't have standing, but the citizens don't have standing before the appellate courts, but they do have political standing as I stand before you today. And this is the only place where their political standing has the opportunity to be heard, and that's through my voice as presented to you.
So I understand that they were not informed because they're not within 500 feet.
Yes.
And do you know whether or not they have been communicated with and informed of this?
I do not.
Okay, so you don't actually know what their opinion is, but you're guessing what it might be given their objection to the pilot.
But you're saying you don't really, the objection's not to this use. So that's where I am interested in your macro view of this, again, there's a truck stop there.
Right.
So we want the best truck stop, period.
Correct.
And now there's a tire shop going in conjunction with it.
We also
Who's
want-
gonna complain about that?
And
We
it's all,
also-
and
we-
wait,
we-
may I ask,
Yeah.
and follow, I want to add on to that question. And we're only changing it with regard to this particular parcel, we're not changing it for the whole place, right? So on your macro question, we're not addressing the macro question, we're just addressing a very small 1 point whatever acre.
2 acres.
2 acres, excuse me, okay, well, close enough, I was within horseshoe range. And that's all we're doing. And it's a usage that is compatible, and in fact, as Commissioner Young stated, is exactly the kind of usage that we would want, and it fits in and provides a service that is not only compatible with the current usage, but is synergistic with it and helps the community of, you know, truck drivers, et cetera, to get off the road in safety. So and since you approve of that usage, the only real thing you're asking us to do is to find some other way to do it, but counsel for the Keating firm tells us that spot zoning change is not possible, and I'm gonna ask Bruce McGarry, our lawyer, in a minute, whether there's some other easier alternative to accommodate your concern, but if he says no, and I need to have this today done for these people, I'm concerned about the fact that this owner, and maybe her sisters, I don't know, are paying $30,000 some a year on a piece of property that doesn't generate sufficient income to cover that. They found a way to deal with it that's compatible with the usage, and I'm not yet certain that I can find a way to why I would object to this.
Hang with me on two items, okay?
Yeah, sure.
Item one is still my macro concern. Item two is the methodology concern, which I'll ask Ms. Blankenship to come up and discuss.
Very good.
All right. On my macro concern,
I think Commissioner Young asked you a main question, and then I was the subsidiary question.
There we go. Go ahead.
okay, so on the macro concern, going back, because I think this is revealing also, but only partially revealing. When the sisters first came to us, and I appreciate that they did, they came to us for a zoning change, but there was no user at that time. And that caused us concern at Turtle Creek Township, because they wanted a zoning change that allowed permitted uses that the community had agreed wouldn't, that the commissioners agreed wouldn't, that Lebanon agreed wouldn't, and that Turtle Creek agreed weren't appropriate uses. So at that point, there was no user, and we had concerns with the zoning change. Subsequently, when they came to us, or as they were going through, they presented Southern Tire Mart. Now, we had the opportunity to review Southern Tire Mart. I researched them individually.
And you know how cool they are, right?
I've heard that they're cool.
I'm telling you.
And they've been here 4 times. My township administrator researched Southern Tire Mart. We called the city of Lebanon to see if they would have any objections to it. And remember, the JED is a partnership between Turtle Creek and Lebanon. Lebanon said they did not, and that's actually a representation the council didn't make. Because in fact, neither Turtle Creek nor Lebanon objects to the use for exactly the reason, and they're able to use the package plant that's out there. It's a small user, and so we don't have health concerns with it, because the package plant, we think it suits the current user as a use where they work together. They work together throughout the country, not just in Turtle Creek Township.
You see, this is helping them improve their thing.
This
okay?
is exactly what I'm saying. We don't object to the use. It's not a use issue. The issue is the protection of my JED and my JED overlay that we spend a lot of time doing. Truck stops are not allowed.
But why isn't that still
How does this
protected?
potentially jeopardize it?
Because
That's my question.
there are bases upon which we can zone, health, safety, general welfare, right? There are bases upon which we can zone. We reviewed all those bases with the community. If we say that these bases no longer exist, then when another owner within this JED district comes up and says, well, I want you to change the zoning here, or I want you to change the zoning here, then have we undermined have we undermined the basis for maintaining our JED and our overlay? That's what I want to protect.
I never like to disagree with you, but in this particular circumstance, this is the discretion of, as one of my former colleagues 20 years ago used to say, you know, a trained monkey could do this job if we didn't have discretion under the law. We have discretion because a board is a duly elected board is making a determination if this is appropriate, because that zoning fits in with the specific micro and macro use of what we're talking about. This makes sense. So if a potential secondary property owner comes in with a property that's inside of this 300 acres and says, I want to change, well, you changed it for the 2 acres over here, I want 20 acres changed over here, I don't think that this has a direct causal effect, because there are a unique set of circumstances related to this request, and we are using our lawfully allocated discretion to make that decision, I don't think that does set a precedent that every potential property owner inside of this JED has to be given the same, well, they're given the same consideration, but they're not guaranteed the same outcome. Councilor Bruce, is that correct?
Yes.
Except that we aren't just approving Southern Tire Mart, we're approving a zoning change if we do a general zoning change.
But only for
That's
these
the delta.
small postage stamp, that's my problem. We're only dealing with the 2 acres, and we're not even dealing with the whole property that they own, just the acreage that they're coming forward with, that this site's gonna buy and purchase and partition off, or whatever they're gonna separate it. Presumably they have to do that. And then, I think what you're saying is that what we do today could influence how we deal with subsequent decisions with regard to the acreage that you're concerned about. And I'm not exactly sure why that is the case, given our discretion in those areas. And this is not, I mean, obviously, I've seen what the usages are. And I see that you actually have an objection, maybe like I was concerned about the outdoor shooting range and about storage facilities. I don't have the same concern about storage facilities, but okay. Do you actually think that there is some legitimate issue with the other acreage, with bringing in an outdoor shooting range or a storage facility, which are usages that you are objecting to because of what we would do today with this 2 acres?
Yeah, I mean, I wanna make it clear. I don't wanna be a pain in the butt to you. I don't wanna be a pain in the butt to any of these folks that are right here.
They're cool people.
I-
You can't be a
Yeah,
pain in the butt to cool people.
exactly right. So, you know, I want to be able to accommodate them. You know, would I pursue Southern Tire Mart as my primary user? Probably not, because we have a JED out there for income taxes and related issues, but that doesn't matter. That's not the issue. It's a reasonable use. You know, I want to be able to accommodate them. I do nonetheless have concerns. So if we just accommodate the use, I agree with everything you just said. But if we change zoning, actual zoning, that permits things that are otherwise non-permissible within this district, then have we just said that the bases for the restrictions on this, health, safety, welfare, have we undermined the bases for zoning in general in the area? That is my concern and my objection.
Okay, you've got somebody else that's gonna testify or
I
give us
do.
something on this? Okay.
May I ask him a question?
Yeah,
before we
sure.
move on? On this macro concept that you have, I'm curious as to the 300 acres. And I've heard it said 8 years that this property owner has been listing the property. I see from the zoning code, the text amendment went into effect 11 years ago. I'm not sure when the map amendment on this property went in effect, so I would think about the same time.
10 to 11 years.
So it's 11 years, not 8 years. In that 11 years, how many of the 300-plus acres in the JED that you call your macro concern has developed? How many has sold their property and has been developed?
None, but I've
Zero.
had.
So let me finish. So
Yeah.
0 acres, does that not concern you that there is some potential deprivation of all economic viable use of the property that the county commissioners could have liability over if in 11 years, none of this property's been able to develop based under the current zoning classification, and now a property owner wants to change it so they can sell it? The very first property owner to be able to sell their property. Does that not concern you?
And to put some context in that, if that's the case, that property owner would have a right to change the zoning for a usage that could be developed. That's where he's going with that, because they would be able to go to court and say, we have tried to develop this under current zoning, it's not developable, therefore we have a right to change it to a usage that is able to be developed, a la this usage. I think that's where he's going, and that's true, and I faced this when I was mayor of Mason and vice mayor of Mason. We had usages that came in where they tried to develop for 20 years. Nair did this once. They were trying to develop and they couldn't. And they had every right then to go into court to force a zoning change. So I think that's the question, so the public understands the point. This property has been zoned for some time without it being developed, which would indicate that the zoning is in not a compatible zoning for the usage, and now they've got a usage, finally, after many years where they're paying excessive taxation, that you guys agree with the usage, and I think your point is, and maybe, is it Blankenship is the person that's gonna?
Amy Blankenship.
Okay, is gonna tell us that there's another way to do this that satisfies your micro or macro concern?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and also don't forget, I'm sure it's not lost on you, we've had a presentation here today that says Warren County Comprehensive Land Use Plan, its future land use map, shows this property as commercial, which is what the applicant is requesting. So that plays into the issue that I raised that Commissioner Grossman commented on as well.
Fair enough. We appreciate your points. If you want your outside counsel to give us an alternative plan, we will certainly give the courtesy of entertaining that.
I would, thank you so much. Amy Blankenship, who by the way also is a Turtle Creek Township resident, so.
Thank you, Jonathan. Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Amy Blankenship. I'm an attorney with Bricker Graydon. My office address is 2 East Mulberry, Lebanon, Ohio. Can I pull up the map of the JED? Is that possible to get that back up on the screen?
Cameron, can you do that, please?
The big green map that shows the parcel in the middle of it, if we could. Thank you. I have 3 long pages of code sites here. I promise I will spare you from most of it. But a few points that I do want to make with relation to.
Yeah, and also, you know what, you could make any point you want, but
Yes.
one thing that I'd like to know is whether or not there's another way to accommodate this that doesn't offend what Mr. Sams is saying. Is there another way to give them the right to do this usage today that doesn't offend the problem that's being raised on this macro, which I'm not convinced that there is this problem, but that's what I'd like to know from you, in addition to whatever else you're gonna say.
In addition to all the other suit stuff I'm gonna talk about.
Yeah,
Yes, I
there are
can
all the
answer
other
that. Thank
cool
you.
stuff that's been.
All the other exciting stuff from your zoning code.
Yeah.
So I am here on behalf of the JED. You did have a letter in your, the Lebanon Turtle Creek JED. You did have a letter in your packet from the JED Land Use Review Board, which is a mechanism created under the JED agreement that brings a board together of township and city representatives to review rezonings within the JED. That met in January, submitted a letter to you recommending disapproval of the rezoning, but again, support of the use. So because of all of this discussion today about the support of the use, in my opinion, because I'm a zoning lawyer, I feel like we're losing sight of the fact that we're talking about a rezoning. You're not here on a conditional use or even a site plan, any type of mechanism like that. You're here as a rezoning under your zoning code.
Yeah, but just for
9
2 acres, right?
For 2 acres in the middle of the JED.
So how is that a problem?
So your JED the way your zoning code works in Warren County is there's a JED overlay, right? It's the same as, for example, the PUD overlay in the zoning code is also an overlay. If this was a giant 380 acre PUD, what we're doing here is comparable to just peeling that overlay off of 2 acres in the middle of this area. And the reason why that's problematic from the JED's perspective is because when the JED was created 10 years ago, and the section of your zoning code that makes reference to the JED overlay, that it's all this cohesive plan in conjunction with the area plan for the JED, which was adopted into the county's comprehensive plan. So through the comprehensive plan, the area plan for the 71 JED, and the zoning, we have this full picture, this broad scope idea. I'm not comfortable with words like macro and micro, but I'm pretty sure this is the macro idea of what the JED should be for all uses within it.
How does the change that we would do today impact that?
Yeah, Counselor, that's my question, is that I would have a problem, and I would understand that would risk the entire JED overlay if they said, we have so many employees going into this dense area, we just can't pay the income tax, which is what this is all about in reality. But they're peeling out of the JED, but yet they're participating in the JED. They're not getting out of paying the tax. That's
correct. The JED stays intact. There's nothing that can happen today that can affect the JED itself. We're talking about peeling off the JED, the zoning JED overlay, right?
But presumably what you're saying is, if I boil down what Trustee Sams is saying, he is saying that by our permitting this change to this 2 acres within this JED, to permit this usage, which you all approve of, it somehow will adversely affect the rest of the JED with usages that you don't approve of. Am I hearing that right?
Yes, because it
Okay,
undermines
so
the,
explain to me how it does that.
sure, because it undermines the integrity of this whole locked down
Why?
zoning overlay.
Why?
Because we're arguably setting a precedent of peeling off that overlay in the middle of these 382 acres.
So we can do it elsewhere if we want to?
So you would have to, then you would have someone in front of you, another property owner,
Why-
in jail, presumably.
But now when we say no to them, because it's not such a compatible, synergistic, beautiful usage that you agree with, and maybe we disagree with the usage, and then we deny it, because of what we do today, have we compromised our denial in the future?
Yes,
How?
and what if we could have our cake and eat it
But
too?
no, wait, okay, I would like that. I would like to have the cake and eat it too thing with the cool people in front of us.
Correct, right. 'Cause
So give me that alternative then.
So
as a
that
second
alternative,
question.
though, Mr. McGarry and I talked about this briefly once several weeks ago. He was not a huge fan. I'm happy to have the conversation further today. But what we had discussed was the possibility, one way or another, in order to accommodate this use, there has to be a zoning change. Either a map amendment to peel off that overlay, or a text amendment to the JED overlay language to allow for the use. We are advocating a text amendment to the language of the JED overlay within your zoning code, which could say something like, you know, truck, whatever it would read, however you would have the mechanical language in there for the truck mechanics of what these guys do, as an accessory use to an existing truck
Can we
stop.
do that today?
We cannot do that today. That's the biggest problem. It would be, you'd be starting from the scratch. We'd have to go back to staff, get the drafting done.
And we'd have to give
and
notice of
take-
everybody.
And go notice and go through
and it
several
would be
levels
blah,
of
blah,
hearings.
blah. How
Correct.
long would that process
It could not
take?
happen today.
Now, how long would it take?
I have no idea. A couple months?
At least 4.
Okay. That doesn't accommodate my, I want it done today thing.
It does
But
not
again-
accommodate
but
you.
again,
Yes,
okay,
you'd have
so
to wait
here's-
4 months to eat that cake.
Okay, but here's my problem. I don't yet, I'm not buying the fact that I've adversely affected our ability to say no in the future. So I'd really like you to tell me why that is. Explain to me, even though I'm a lawyer, and I'll tell you where I've got a fundamental issue with all of this stuff. Because generally speaking, unless you show me that a usage is somehow incompatible and is causing a nuisance to other neighboring property owners, I am generally gonna permit a zoning change. Because I believe that when the United States Supreme Court allowed zoning, and that, they had that case in the 1920s, and their basis for permitting a personal owner of real estate to not use his property the way he wants, it was under a nuisance concept. And I believe that that's really the only legitimate basis to this. So having said, telling you my predilections on this and how I look at this, and given the fact that you all do not object to this usage, and it is compatible with a neighboring property owner, and it is a benefit to the community and a service that is perfectly compatible and needed, I'm only then looking at whether or not there is a nuisance usage that will now be permitted someplace in this JED that I can't stop, but we will stop it. We will try. At least we'll try. And with your help, I'm sure we might succeed. But then the question is, have I jeopardized my ability to stop another nuisance usage? That's my real question to you.
Well, the problem is that this entire process this is the wrong process for this. Our county zoning code requires us to follow the comp plan. The comp plan says uses shall be consistent throughout the JED.
I mean, are you saying that what we're doing today is illegal?
Yes, it's the improper use of the zoning
Oh,
code.
Okay,
There's
that's a
also
whole
term.
different, wait a second. So you're saying that if we approve this today, we've engaged in an act that is contrary to law?
Yes, in my opinion, yes, this is contrary to both
All
the
right, well,
Warren
that's a
County
whole different
zoning
thing.
code and Ohio law. I'm gonna revisit the spot zoning.
So zoning
here.
doesn't fall
if we
under our
can.
authority?
It does, but you have a zoning code that you have drafted and approved, and that zoning code says.
And we've never rezoned other properties in this county?
Well, within an overlay, you've got language in your zoning, in your
We have a
standards.
71 or a 75 overlay on I-75, and we've certainly done it there also.
Right, this is within the JED
Are
overlay.
you guys going
which-
to, are you going to take us to court for violating the law if we do this?
No, I do not think there's any
Okay,
intention
now
to
is there
do
somebody
that.
else that's got standing? Because Mr. McGarry says the neighboring property owners
No,
don't
make no
have
mistake, I don't believe there's any intention to do
standing.
that,
Oh, okay,
no.
well then I'm not really worried about that.
Okay, well, one more quick point. It does say within your JED overlay section of the zoning code that well, it says within your rezoning standards, that you shall not create a conflict with another section of the zoning code. The JED overlay section, because this particular JED has its own section of the county zoning code, the JED overlay section says that all uses shall be consistent within it, and that, let me read you the exact language.
Check the box, this is.
And, well,
All
no,
usages are consistent. Check the box, this is a consistent usage.
arguably it isn't. Once we've opened this land up to
A
B2.
tire
Currently,
shop.
this exact use is, but this parcel
So
will
it is,
now
so
be,
check the box, I'm
but
right.
this parcel will then be opened up to B2 forever.
Isn't the property across the street from this parcel zoned B2 in your JED overlay?
With the JED overlay,
Yeah,
yes.
it's with the JED overlay.
Rezone this to
but it's-
B2 with the
but
JED
it's-
overlay.
It's B2 like this property owner is asking for. It's consistent with the Warren County Comprehensive Land Use Plan for this to be commercial.
Respectfully, Mr. McGarry, I think that's a misrepresentation of the zoning of the JED. The land across the road is B2 with the JED overlay. This land, the current land that you're looking at today, is I1 with the JED overlay. If the proposal in front of you today was B2 with the JED overlay, none of us would be here.
But your proposal is to do a text amendment and change the entire JED to allow this use. So you open the whole JED up to allowing, under your theory, to allow this use throughout the JED.
An accessory mechanic use to a truck stop, yes.
But a truck stop is prohibited in
Correct.
the JED.
Right.
So it has no benefit if you do a text amendment.
Well, it allows this use.
But doesn't that?
Not as an accessory to a truck stop, because a truck stop's not allowed in the JED.
But there's already an existing truck stop.
But now you're gonna allow a truck stop elsewhere in the JED?
No. There'd be simply an accessory use for a truck
Oh, so they're
mechanic.
you're gonna permit an accessory use to a truck stop anywhere in the JED, under your text amendment?
Yes,
theory.
however, your accessory use language
I may not
tailors-
like that, by the way.
Fair enough, but your accessory use language tailors it to a principal use, so it would have to be located with the pilot.
Non-conforming use.
Okay, so let me recap what you're telling us. You're saying, number one, that you believe that our approving this today is an illegal act for which we are not following Ohio law or our own legal process. And in addition to that, which nobody will object to, I don't believe, whether that's true or false, but you're also saying that your solution to this is to permit this, but to make these folks go through another 4-month process where who knows what exactly is gonna happen. And as opposed to doing it today, where the end result is the same, but the benefit that you're getting from this is that we're not permitting a storage facility possibility or a gun range possibility, which we would probably object to if you guys objected someplace else, particularly near the place where people, residences are.
Well, I think storage facilities might be a permitted use, not
Well,
conditional.
okay, I don't know. Is
Right,
that not a
regardless.
conditional use? That's a permitted use now?
I believe you'd have to ask that.
See,
I believe shooting ranges are
I didn't have a
conditional,
problem with
but-
the storage thing, but,
Right.
okay, I think I understand it. I mean, I think I understand your point, Counselor, and I know you're making a legal argument. I love legal arguments, okay, because I'm a lawyer. But as just a commissioner,
I
I'm not
understand.
yet buying.
I'm just the average schmuck on the street, even though, Bruce, what did I get in constitutional law at
You got
Ohio
an A.
Wesleyan? Yes, I did get
think
an
you
A.
got an A.
So I count 7 attorneys in a room for a 2-acre parcel. And with all due respect, as the common sense guy in the room, I know where we're going with this. I have the utmost respect for Jonathan Sams and his esteemed legal mind. I happen to disagree on this particular issue simply because if we were carving out one property and and saying you're not part of the JED anymore, you don't have to pay the taxes, that's problematic to me. That's not what's going on here. They're still subject to the JED. They're paying in. And honestly, you all should be doing backflips for this, everybody that was in favor of this 11 years ago or what have you, because the seal has been broken. Now there's going to be 10 or 15 employees coming in paying income tax into this fund to build sewers, which I said was not going to happen. But hopefully that gets going on eventually happening. So again, I respect your opinion, Counselor. I respect the fact you are saying that there is an alternative path to get us there. I've done this for a long time. I've had counsel tell me before that I was on very serious, shaky legal ground on one particular zoning case. I said, I think I'm right. I don't really care what that says. It went to the Ohio Supreme Court, and they agreed with me. So in this particular case, I'm very comfortable with what we're doing and saying, this is okay. So I don't want to keep running up everybody's legals tabs unless you.
I'd like to wrap two things. First of all, there's no way we're gonna sue you guys, nor would we ever. And I appreciate where you guys come from and the multiple layers of political decision-making that exists. I think, you know, if all the zoning and decision-making were in my hands, then that would be a mistake, right? Too much power in one person's hands. And so we have planning, and we have zoning, and we have the JED Use Board, we have township, and we have city, and we have you. And I think that's an appropriate application of wisdom, and I always respect your wisdom, and I'm grateful for it. Secondly, just to reiterate, I do think that there are bases, for the record, I do think that there are bases under the JED overlay, which we went into at the time that it was approved, based upon the health and safety and general welfare of our community for this overlay district and our zoning code to exist. And I stridently argue for the enforcement of those underlying issues. If you decide that those issues remain applicable to the balance of the overlay, but they are not material to this, then I have to rely upon your discretion in that. But as far as the township is concerned, our position is that those are very important things, for the record.
Well, thank you, Counselor, and for the record, because again, I just watched Suits last night, my final statement, for the record, will be health, safety, and welfare. What is the one established business in the JED, for the record, right now?
Right now, it's the Flying J. Well, at Mom's.
It's a truck stop, right? There's a truck stop, right?
Correct.
Which means there is a substantial number of trucks that are coming to our community and stopping here, abnormally high because of that one particular business. For the record, is that not correct?
That is correct.
Is this business not in the business of going out and servicing these trucks that are potentially a safety hazard on the side of our highways inside of this county and getting them back to operational usage and getting them off of our roads?
That is correct.
And is that not an enhancement to safety?
It could well be conceived as such.
Thank you. So for the record, that is my primary position on why on this particular circumstance, I am entertaining moving forward with this zoning change, because in this particular circumstance, there is a direct, for the record, even with the person that is opposing this, correlation between public safety and this zoning change.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and I don't even know why I went to law school. I could have done that. Okay, so.
Very good. Anyone else want to speak on this matter? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close this public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Very good. As board president, I'll entertain a motion of what would we like to do with the matter before us.
And I'm gonna, may I make some discussion?
100%.
Okay. I wanna make sure that Mr. Sams and Ms. Blankenship realize how much we respect and honor your opinion. And nothing we've said today is meant to be personal to you. I don't, you've heard what I've said already in the questions I've asked, and you know how much regard we have for the Turtle Creek Township. And generally speaking, when Jonathan comes up and says something to us, it's sort of like, you know, we take very seriously what the township says to us. But in this case, I'm not convinced that this is the wrong decision today, because I'm not convinced that we're doing something illegal. And I'm not convinced that we're adversely affecting the rest of this JED. And I believe that we still have the ability to strike down conditional usages or refuse to make zoning changes elsewhere, and that we've not adversely impacted that. And I feel that this owner of this property has attempted in every way, shape, and form to develop and sell this property, and that has been unsuccessful until today, with now a usage that clearly you all agree is appropriate for this site. And for that reason, Bruce, are we doing something illegal today?
No.
Okay.
And Bruce, for the record, have we shown a correlation on this specific zoning change with something that's directly, and which is why I wanted to have the discussion with trustee Sams, that there is a direct correlation with this zoning change and the safety of the public?
I believe that your assessment of the application before you complies with factors under section 1.304.5. I'd like to commend the Warren County Rural Zoning Commission for making a decision that did exactly that. And that's unusual for me to say, and suggests that the RPC Executive Committee learn to do the same when they want to make a recommendation to this board about a rezoning. With that being said, yes, the factors in 1.3 or 4.5, I think you've alluded to, and would justify you approving the application for the rezoning.
Okay, so with that, I will make a motion that we approve this zoning change today pursuant to the resolution that's been prepared for us. Do we need to read that?
We've got a resolution approving the rezoning application of the Sisters LTD to rezone approximately 2 acres from light industrial manufacturing zone I-1 inside a JED area to community commercial business zone B2 removed from the JED in Turtle Creek Township.
Any conditions? It's just a rezone.
No, it's just rezone.
Okay, I make a motion that we adopt that resolution.
And second, roll call?
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mr. Grossman?
Yes.
Very good. Thank you all for participating today.
Thank you.
Bruce, this is a record for our per lawyer ratio per acreage. 7 for 2.
But we also
We
had
gotta make a note of that.
some cool people in front of us today. All of them are cool.
Very good. Is there a motion to adjourn? If there's no other business?
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Good to see you. Sure.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
I'm making a motion to adjourn. Oh,
Yes.
Sewer, I want sewer.
You need to,
What do I do?
well, some of your, I was telling